Social services was coming in and out of our house pretty regularly at this point in our lives, and it was obvious that my mom resented their visits. Perhaps concerned neighbors began placing anonymous calls about the neglect and abuse they suspected was happening in our home. Either that or my medical records, which detailed that my siblings and I were at home alone without adult supervision the day I got so badly burned, got into the hands of a well-meaning social worker. A lot of my mom's disdain stemmed from social workers from the Department of Human Services coming to, in her mind, correct how she was raising us. Before they started showing up unannounced, they would usually give us some prior notice before stopping by. On the days they were expected to come, my mother would tell us to climb over the backyard fence into our neighbor Mrs. Gale's house. Other times it was to Mr. Sam's home. These neighbors were both very compassionate and sympathetic people, and I frankly believe they helped us out whenever they could because they felt sorry for my mother. On days throughout the year when our tap was turned off because Mom was behind in paying her utility bill, we'd get the water we need to cook or bathe from Mr. Sam or Mrs. Gale's. The social workers eventually got wise to the fact that my mom was evading them, and they began to stop by unannounced. Mostly their efforts were in vain because my mother wouldn't let them in. If they happened to knock on our front door when she wasn't home, we knew not to answer or open that damn door for anybody. On the rare occasions when my mom was present and answered her door and let them in, she would have also prepped us thoroughly before their arrival. We'd receive strict instructions on what to say if interviewed by them. She began, "You don't tell these people anything about what's going on inside of here. You don't tell anyone your business." Finishing her thought, her eyes would get squinty and gleam with long-harbored rage. My mom could have spared me and my brother's lecture because we weren't going to say a word anyhow. We were so conditioned to acquiesce to whatever my mother said or asked of us that we rarely ever defied her. With all of us seated together in the living room, in the company of social workers who were busy scribbling down their notes, when it was time for us to talk, we'd look at our mother, who would give each of us a look that threatened our early and untimely demise should we be helpful to the social workers in any way. We got good at lying and said nothing of the abuse when asked. Even on those rare occasions when my siblings and I would be interviewed with the social workers by ourselves outside of our mother's presence, we stonewalled them. How could we not? The social workers would leave in all of 20 minutes, and we'd be stuck in the house with our mother. She had no qualms about reaming our asses within an inch of our lives if we displeased her. I also instinctively understood that if I ever did come clean about what my life was really like while in her care, I might never see her again. The idea of losing all attachment to her left me feeling deeply conflicted. Like so many other survivors who have lived through harrowing circumstances, I never said a word about the oppressive forces in my life. Now, as an adult looking back in hindsight, I realized that the interview questions being posed to us were to create effective action steps which delegated any number of tasks in order to connect Mom with existing community services, resources that would have enabled her to keep our family together. Mom, however, never felt motivated to follow through with the recommendations, probably due to her deep distrust of the systems that were intended to support her. I believe the deepest fear she harbored by far was having another one of her kids taken from her. She opted for an unyielding lack of cooperation rather than to consort with the enemy. Her deep sense of alienation, however, only crippled her attempts to preserve the family unit, something she deeply desired. I believe my mother understood on some level that she didn't have the resources to take care of us as we needed, but she would be damned if anyone tried to pull her fragile family apart.